You need a kidney. The legal waiting list has over 100,000 people on it. Average wait, 3 to 5 years. A lot of people on that list die before their name comes up, so some of them stop waiting. They wire a very large amount of money to a stranger. And somewhere in the world, a person with real surgical training takes that money, prepares a room that doesn't officially exist, and opens a body. This isn't a rumor. The WHO tracks it. Interpol tracks it. Journalists have spent years inside it. So let's look at the actual science of an illegal transplant, because almost everything you think you know about it is wrong. When people hear black market organs, they picture kidnappings. The tourist who wakes up in a bathtub in Bangkok with stitches in his side and a note on the mirror. That story has been told so many times it feels true. It isn't. Not one verified case of it exists. Anywhere. Ever. What's actually happening is worse, because nobody gets kidnapped. They sign. A donor who needs money agrees to sell a kidney. A recipient who needs an organ agrees to buy one. Between them sits a network of brokers, doctors, and logistics that makes the two ends meet. The WHO estimates that somewhere between 5 and 10% of all transplants worldwide happen this way. And at the center of it is a surgeon who, at some point, crossed a line. Here's the thing people underestimate. A transplant cannot be improvised. You either have years of surgical training or your patient dies on the table. There is no third option, so the black market surgeon went to real medical school, operated in real hospitals, and then, somewhere along the way, either the system pushed him out or he walked. We know exactly what this looks like because in 2011, one of them was convicted in a federal court in New Jersey. Levi Isaac Rosenbaum spent roughly a decade brokering kidneys. He'd find donors in Israel, fly them to the United States, and match them to buyers who paid up to $160,000. He coached his clients on what to tell the hospital. Say you're doing it out of love. Say your family. Doctors at legitimate American hospitals perform those surgeries and never asked the second question. That's the real shape of this thing, not a basement, a gap in the paperwork. But when there's no hospital to hide inside, the surgeon has to build one, and that's where it starts to fall apart. Think about what you minimally need to open a human body and not kill them. You need an anesthesiologist. General anesthesia isn't sleep. It's a controlled state of unconsciousness while your body keeps running. Dose slightly high, the patient stops breathing. Dose slightly low, they wake up mid-surgery and feel it. Some black market operations recruit corrupt anesthesiologists. Some work with lighter sedation and local anesthetic, which hard limits what they can do. Some just wing it. Then there's sterility, and this is the one that kills quietly. An infection that a hospital handles with cultures and IV antibiotics can kill an unmonitored patient weeks later, after a surgery that technically went perfectly. And if something goes wrong on the table, a hospital has protocols, a code team, an ICU waiting. A clandestine room has two options: improvise or lose the patient, and all of that assumes the organ is already there. The moment an organ leaves a body, it starts dying. A heart gives you 4 to 6 hours. After that, the tissue is too damaged to work. A liver, 12 to 24. A kidney, the most trafficked organ on Earth, holds for about 24 to 36 hours if it's preserved correctly. And preserved correctly does not mean packed in ice. Movies invented that. Freezing an organ destroys the cells. A frozen kidney is a dead kidney. What actually gets used is cold preservation solution. The global standard is called UW solution. It's a very specific chemical mix that mimics the environment inside a cell, drops the tissue's metabolism to almost nothing, and stops the cells from collapsing while there's no blood moving through them. The organ sits in it at 2 to 4 degrees Celsius. Cold, not frozen. Legal transplant systems move organs with air transport protocols, hospital coordination, and recovery teams that fly to the donor. Everything timed to the minute. The black market has to reproduce all of that with none of it. In documented cases, organs have crossed borders in preservation containers inside carry-on luggage, on commercial flights, next to passengers who had no idea what was in the bag beside them. Delayed flight, extra layover, one broken link, and the organ is gone. Here's what almost nobody thinks about. The transplant doesn't end when they close the incision. That's where the hard part starts. Your immune system's entire job is to destroy anything it doesn't recognize as you. A new organ, even a perfect one, is a threat. Left alone, your body attacks it and kills it. It's called rejection, and it can happen in days, weeks, or months. To stop it, the recipient needs immunosuppressants, drugs that switch off part of the immune system in a controlled way, permanently, not a course of treatment, for life. And the dose has to be recalibrated with regular blood work. In a legal system, that means weeks of monitoring and years of follow-up. On the black market, the patient gets on a plane. Some go home with a prescription and hope their local doctor doesn't ask too many questions. Some invent a story about where they had surgery. Some show up in an ER weeks later, rejecting, and have to confess everything to a stranger in scrubs. And the donor? Studies that tracked sellers in India and Pakistan years after the fact found the same pattern again and again. Most were paid less than promised. Most were still in debt. Many reported their health was worse than before, and almost none received any medical follow-up at all. They were paid somewhere between $1,000 and $5,000. The organ they sold was resold for up to $300,000. So, a surgeon crossed a line. A buyer skipped a queue. A broker took the difference. But the person who actually gave up a piece of their body is the only one in this chain who ended up worse than when they started. So here's the real question. Is the problem the black market, or the system that makes it worth the risk? Tell me below. And if you want to know what happens when a legal system decides to make organs opt out by default, that one's next.